Please welcome our next presenter, Matthew from EDfiniti.
Good morning, Matthew Myrold. I too am a special education teacher. I originally hail from Fargo, North Dakota. I moved down here in July. I would like to start with our video first, and that is going to give you an overview of what we do and how we do it. And then I would like to spend my remaining moments talking about why we do it.
As teachers, our primary goal is to help our students succeed. Schools have successfully monitored and recorded student academic progress for decades. Recently, much more attention has been focused on student behavior in the classroom. Behavior issues are much more difficult to assess and even more challenging to consistently monitor and track. Once behavior issues are identified, mapping out a comprehensive assessment plan can be taxing on time and resources, often resulting in subjective and incomplete information. Teachers and administrators need ways to clear up confusion and methods to monitor and map out progress for these students with fidelity and objective data. Introducing the EDfiniti mobile application platform, MAP, a mobile app that eliminates confusing and time-consuming paper documentation and brings theory into practice. MAP captures data intelligently, allowing you, the educator, to see a holistic, documented overview of each child's emotional and behavioral growth over time. Founded by 2 licensed special educators, MAP simplifies recording daily progress and serves as an effective tool to recognize, based off of objective data, students with behavioral needs. With MAP, you can record behavioral occurrences of students in real time, within as little as 5 seconds using the mobile app. With over 200 behavior actions categorized within the multi-tiered system of supports, this app assists teachers to make effective decisions for charting student success. MAP allows you to monitor students' emotional reactions and behaviors systematically, providing the opportunity to see where support is needed. For special education students, it can assist in determining the effectiveness of accommodations and progress towards goals. View students' behavior over time with easy-to-read graphs created for you. MAP's simple and objective approach will empower data-driven conversations and help educators make the best decisions for students. MAP brings simplicity and ease, along with greater collaboration for both teachers and administrators, leading to more successful students. After all, helping students succeed is why we're here. EDfiniti MAP, bringing theory into practice.
Okay, by a show of hands, anyone in here have children? Okay, hands up. Anyone know children? Okay, that's all of us. I have had the pleasure and the blessing of working in what Minnesota, it's called level 3 and level 4 settings for my entire career. That's a self-contained classroom and a separate school facility. And I've been honored to work with the best of the best over the last 14 years. And in doing that, working with ED or EBD kids, that's emotional and or behavior disordered kids, I've had the privilege of learning a lot about behavior. And what we have, our product, the mobile assessment platform, is a synthesis of 14 years of my own research along with national research to create a product that systematically monitors objectively student behavior and student need. We've all heard about the kid that is the rough and rowdy child. If you're an educator in special ed, we've seen that. And to date, there was not an objective method for measuring holistically the behaviors of a child. We deal with a specific behavior set. It could be episodic, it could be class-related, but we never look at the whole child. And what we're able to do now is longitudinally look at a student's behavior across all settings using an iOS application that we had developed. And I am one of the co-founders of the company. The other, he's currently teaching class right now in West Fargo in a sped ed classroom. We have a strategic partnership with Myriad Mobile. They're kind of the technology behind our product. And our product was developed with iOS in mind, and it functions on any iOS platform as well as laptop. And we're working on an Android model now. And so as a teacher, I can continue my lesson and monitor my students in real time without having to stop and do the pen and paper documentation of old. Now, as a sped ed teacher, I've always tracked and monitored behavior, and I would have an arm sleeve full of point sheets as I'm going around my day, and it just became habit to carry a dozen of them in my hand. Well, then we have that transfer of information. Then we have the transfer of information from the point sheet into a spreadsheet, and then you have to tabulate all of that information as a sped ed teacher when we are monitoring goals. Our intuitive software takes care of that for us now. It literally monitors our goals as we go about our day. And what this product also does is it's real time and it links throughout the school for administrative purposes. We so often focus on the behavior that we forget about the antecedent. We forget about what's going on in the kiddo's life before a behavior occurs. I know this to be true. A student's behavior has absolutely nothing to do with me as an individual. It's a cry of an unmet need. And I'm a huge fan of Maslow's hierarchy of need. We are expecting self-efficacy and function in a classroom when we're not meeting or the student's basic needs are not being met. Safety, food and shelter. Level 1 needs, and we're expecting them to perform as if everything is perfect in their life. And so we are trying to mitigate a behavior, but not looking at the underlying need in that child's life. And what this product does is gives us an overview. And in using it, we've piloted it in March, and we are now in school settings. And what we are able to view is this student, I'm going to call him Roger, just was off the board in the morning. And in looking that, well, he's getting kicked out all of the time. What I made arrangements for Roger was I had a full kitchen in my classroom. I started cooking breakfast for him, asking him how he's doing, making sure he had a clean shirt on. His behaviors first period dropped almost to zero because he had a full belly of food. And he had someone to love him and to visit with him. We have another student I'm going to call Devin. He came to me with a cum file that was this thick in 6th grade. I had the privilege of working with him for 2 years. And in that time, we were able to clear the clutter, the emotional need that he had. It's difficult to think about school when your mom and dad aren't at home at night. It is difficult to think of school when your dad's in jail. It is difficult to think about school if you're running drugs for your folks. It is difficult to think about anything but survival. So we clean out the clutter. We talk about the stuff of life using objective data as a tool. It's no longer emotional, like, doggone it, why don't you listen? We have data to drive our conversations. And we've seen miraculous things in classrooms with teachers. It's frustrating to be in a class. I have 30 students, 5 periods a day, and you have that handful of students that drive you nuts. And you have a job to do. That we look only at the behavior. So back to Devin. Clearing out the clutter. Making him feel safe and comfortable. Turns out Devin was almost mathematically savant. End of 7th grade, he was completing algebra. Because we were able to look beyond behavior sets and look at the whole child and provide him with the supports that he needed. Devin is now in 10th grade. He's through trigonometry, he's a full attender, and he's on the B honor roll. We'll call a guy named Lucian. Lucian couldn't read, but behaviors were as such that he was a problem. So much so that he got kicked out of school and sent to my school. But Lucian, it was learned, had dyslexia, couldn't read. I get called on because I can't read. I am going to misbehave so I don't have to read. I'm going to get kicked out so I don't have to be there. And here's what I know about attention. Bad attention is better than none. Lucian, post 8 years, he had a powerful ear. He could walk up to your car and tell you what was wrong with it. So I saw Lucian like 8 years after I had him. His car, he had a jacked up Subaru worth about 80 grand, more than I make in a year. And he was one of the techs at a local company doing high-end custom models for them. Our software allows us to look at the whole kid. That's what I got.
Thank you, Matthew. Very interesting concept. Love the work that you're doing with other kids. Let us ask, as we ask all of our presenters, what is it that this community of entrepreneurs can do to help your software project?
Okay, we're an organic company. We firmly believe that it's the teacher that needs to see the value in this versus a top-down district or even school building initiative. I've been teaching long enough to have gone through dozens of the next best thing and to have it forced as an initiative. We're not doing that. So if you know a teacher, encourage them to visit our website. Definitely would have a conversation or we would demo it. We're building out our website so that we have training models on there so it walks individuals through the process. So if you know any teachers, let them know we're around.
Great. I'd like to bring around the microphone to respond to questions. It was down so low before, I wasn't sure it was working.
What sort of a change in the teacher's time can you document that in there? From your list on your arm, you described to doing this. What kind of time savings does that give them, and how long would it take them to adopt that?
Use to utility is 2 days. Because it's a relatively simple, straightforward process, our teachers reported that within that after that second day, they were comfortable, and as far as interrupting the flow of the classroom, virtually not, because it is in my hand, and I am going with the flow of my classroom. Another kind of a secondary side effect to this is the kids know that the classroom is being monitored, and it has kind of a calming effect. As soon as the iPod goes up, the energy goes down. And that was noted across several classrooms, which is a wonderful benefit. What the behavior lists are split up into tiers. And they're categorized that couple with IDEA language, special education qualifying language. So we are addressing academic, interpersonal, and social. And those fall in our special ed categories for qualifying statements. So when I become involved in a student's life, it's usually after the wheels have fallen off. We now have, at minimum, 12 weeks of objective data to bring to that conversation versus having a team of teachers say, Myral, this kid's out of hand, he needs to be with you. Okay, what's going on? Well, he's just out of control. Give me some examples. Well, He gets kicked out of my class every day. Why? You know, and we continue to ask that why question, and there's nothing to substantiate. I understand that the kids are misbehaving, but for us to make a qualified decision to place a student in special education services, this is an education-changing moment for this kid, and we have nothing to substantiate that decision. We do have what are called functional behavior assessments, where a teacher will go in, or a psychologist, student psych will go in and observe, at minimum, 3 20-minute blocks. Again, we are shifting the student's educational experience based on what could be episodic behavior.
I'm completely sold on the educational impact of this. Let's talk business. You said 2 pieces of positive feedback that you've gotten from the teachers thus far are, number 1, relatively quick to learn how to use.
Yep.
Number 2, it has a calming effect on the classroom. What other positive feedback have you gotten thus far from your users?
From administration. And admin can look holistically at what's going on in his or her school. Now, this impacts school culture as well.
Okay, great. How about what things have people requested to have changed, or what have they said they didn't like? And if you say nothing, I won't believe you.
We were blessed to be invited to the North Dakota Department of Public Instruction to give a presentation last week. And one of the things that we have now in the work is we have a macro level right now where we can look at a whole building. And from a business model perspective, it as of current was district or school building. What we are having developed out and will be released in December is an individual model. So if a school doesn't want to take this on, what about the special educator or the elementary teacher who would like to have an overview, a holistic view of his or her classroom? So we're refining it.
Okay. How much do they pay on each of those levels?
That is a great question. We want it to be affordable, and I can tell you that an individual license will be $10 a month. And then it's stepped and tiered. That's my goal is to get it into anyone's hands that wants to use it, that wants to see authentic behavioral change, to make it affordable for them.
Okay. A couple things to be aware of. I see as a growth model for you, SEO being really powerful, search on Google, and so get an SEO person who really knows their shit. Because here's the exciting part. All you need to do is write into your contracts with these schools that they have some kind of a link to on their website, even if they just say on their FYI, we are using or we are even testing the software, here's a link to their website. You don't need many links from a .edu before you're going to just fly to the top of the search results. And so you just need to make sure that you're showing up for the right words at that point. Furthermore, I believe it's the Institute of Educational Statistics has free lists with contact information for every school in the US. And I think you can buy a list for just a few $100s from the state of Minnesota of licensed teachers in the state. So you probably have already done some of this, but call and talk to these people until you've done it enough times that you're having the same conversation each time. Put that into an email, blast it to everyone. After you've gotten those responses, then put it into a postcard, blast it to everyone after those, then get back on the phone call.
Thank you.
What interaction do the parents have with this app?
As a sped ed teacher, I deal with behavior. You can almost guess what kind of conversations occur when I interact with parents. What we need in education is a paradigm shift. Rather than functioning from a deficit model, this is what's wrong. We are able to have conversations with parents now where we can say that on Tuesday, in fourth period, this is what occurred. This is my perception of what occurred. And I have had the privilege of sitting in on several of those parent meetings where I was able to facilitate the data that was represented. If you have a student or if you have a child that struggles behaviorally, it's not like you don't know it. What this allows is for an objective conversation to occur. There will still be parents that are upset. That's a given. But this is an added tool for us as educators and most importantly for the student. Because this model, this data that's collected is also used, I use it in conversations with my kids. You know, that is when I sat down with, we'll call him Bob, said, hey, look at what happened today, what's going on? It's not leveling out for you. Well, Mr. Myrold, this is what I've got going on, you know, and I learned dad's in jail, mom's not home. Well, that's important to know as an educator. So maybe I'm a little softer in my approach with my student. So we're looking at the whole child and kind of a wraparound philosophy where the students are very much engaged. In development is a parental portal. That won't be ready in December, but it will be ready.
I was thinking about how Apple put their computers into schools in the 80s. Mm-hmm. And was thinking about in the collegiate arena for, you know, where they're training teachers in those programs. Have you considered providing this product for free for maybe case studies or, you know, to students who are doing, you know, their internships or whatever they're called for teachers? You know, have you done anything like that?
That's a brilliant idea. No, had not. Because of our partnership with Myriad Mobile, we have had access to Apple and had wonderful conversations with them. And as a result of that, did kind of a 6-state tour with them this summer, highlighting our platform. But had not thought about the practicum student teaching perspective, and I think that there is a lot of merit and value to that. With respect to that, though, we have data privacy that is of the utmost concern. We are partnered with Myriad, and we have their best technologists on board, HIPAA compliant, and security is paramount to what we do because we're dealing with kids. So that would be my only concern, or not only, but that would be a concern.
Sure. And then secondly, my brother teaches English as a second language, and he's taught it in different age groups, and I know that he deals a lot with behavioral issues. I mean, just the frustration of not having English be their native language, and whatever they're dealing with at home is maybe perhaps immigrants or. So have you thought about other, you know, other opportunities for this as far as, you know, maybe you know, students getting their GED, or in high school there's kids on medication, you know, just in a regular setting or even an ESL type setting?
Yes. Thank you for that question. Our process, the algorithm that we wrote with the risk factorization and then the filtering system is currently patent pending. What's awesome about our product is that the language can be removed. The architecture remains the same, and you can, any behavior set that you want to measure, you can use within the system. So we have been in conversations with United Way, with the Homeless Coalition, and so outside of the education space, there is value to this if there is something that you want to objectively measure. We had a conversation with an ag company, dairy, measuring cattle tendencies and behaviors. I never even thought of that. Well, why would I? I'm a teacher, you know? On how that you can measure this and correlate different variables, because the data set that you create is only limited to what you enter. You know, it's scalable.
First, I think it's clear that you really care about your students and their dignity. I appreciate that, seeing that came through. I had a few comments and a question or two. My first impression of the name EDfiniti, I thought your name was Ed. So I just want to share that with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before you scale it, you just may want to just think about it. Would it be EDufiniti? Or so anyway, I thought it was your name.
You can call me Ed.
That's all right. I think it's cool that you're in this area in Minnesota. I'm not sure if, I don't know, I don't have an opinion about whether or not you want kids to know. You had mentioned that it's a benefit that kids know they're being monitored. Just think there's impacts to that, and I don't know what they are. I think it might be wise to reach out to the founders of KidBlog. Are you familiar with that?
Heard of.
Yeah. So they've kind of been down, not the same road, but they've been down the education road. I think if you had coffee with them, I'm sure there would be things that would be helpful. Do you need Android yet? Do you need Android? You said you were building Android?
We are building out that model, and here's why.
Well, I would just ask that question. We don't need to know today, but I would just challenge, I would ask you to think about that. If you're still building and tweaking, do you need Android yet? Is recording behavior in a normal classroom setting something that teachers already do or a new requirement? My mom's a 6th grade teacher. She's had some of the problems you experienced, but so that's my question. Is it a new requirement for them, for a regular 6th grade teacher?
Moving forward, yes, there are federal mandates in place.
Okay, I totally get what you're saying. Federally, they're going to require it to happen. Okay, but as a 6th grade teacher, I know my mom has told me that she gets all these rules and she doesn't have time to do anything more. She wants to teach these kids. So one of the things I think you'll want to consider at least would be whether or not early in the school year, people could come into the classroom that are not the teacher and could just be there and just operating your software maybe for a week in the classroom. And from that, then you could be able to have visibility into who needs help, but let that teacher teach. So that was it.
Thank you. One thing that I would like to make mention of is from a behavior monitoring perspective, and I don't know if that was fleshed out completely. This is not occurring for all students all of the time. Part of the filtration system is after the initial risk factorization occurs prior to any engagement with the student, 80% of your student population, statistically, will drop off. So now we're dealing with 20% of the whole. And after 6 weeks, an additional 15% will drop off. So at the end of 12 weeks, you're looking on average of 3 or 4 students that truly have what I would consider the behavioral need.
My question to you, I know you obviously need to respect the privacy of students. The question that I immediately thought of is, what about research? I mean, the kind of data that you're collecting is extremely valuable, not simply for your proprietary use, but for the public good. And I know that you're a public servant. And my question to you is, how can you partner with research institutions, public institutions, so that the data you're gathering can benefit the public education in general?
I am currently finishing my doctorate in education research. And that is, for me, a huge sticking point. I want the overall good for our kiddos, but I don't want it to be sold out, the data. Currently, the way our contracts are written and our own personal mission statement is that it remains in-house. I think longitudinally, as it builds out and state to state, There's valuable insights that can be garnered from that. What interventions work? Right now, we just kind of, we try something, it doesn't work, we move on. What kind of behaviors are occurring, and then what is most helpful? And that's valuable information. We as a company are not prepared to say that, yep, we're going to sell it out to, like Watson. That's just not what we're about. Helping kids is the only thing that I want to do.
Matthew, we have time for one more question here.
Not really a question, just an idea. I would actually highly suggest in this case working with a freemium model and give this away free to every teacher that's interested in using it. Let them become the acolytes for the system.
Thank you.